Oh man, oh boys. This might be the best thing that's happened since Ocarina of Time. Now I know I'm a hypocrite because I just made a video like a week ago, and in that video I said that specifically like game news channels as a whole, but like specifically Nintendo game news channels, I was sick of them and they were annoying because they would constantly say that things were going to happen when they probably weren't going to happen. And they would make videos over and over and over about them, specifically an Ocarina of Time remake for the Switch 2. And then Nate the Hate had to go and make a podcast. And usually I would just shrug this off as nothing, a big old nothing burger. But if you know Nate the Hate, he's basically 99% accurate with his leaks. And a new Ocarina of Time was one of the mini bombs he dropped. Now he dropped a few, Star Fox and Ocarina of Time being the two biggest ones. And if you know this channel and you know me, Ocarina of Time is my favorite game of all time. Like, not even close. I don't even have to think about it. Like, I've played through Ocarina of Time so many times. It means so much to me. I can't. I have all the Lego sets. I have action figures. I have a ton of posters. I have the original Nintendo Power game walkthrough. I have it. I have everything. I love this game. So I hated to see it all the time. Like, oh, no, we're probably not. But I had hope. I just didn't want to like see it every day. And now I can actually feel like I can be excited. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to talk about 7 things that I would want in an Ocarina of Time remake for the Nintendo Switch 2. Hey, Editing Melky here. It's more than 7, buddy. It's definitely more than 7. So I apologize to you, you beautiful glazers. So just get ready for that one. Hey there, all you beautiful guardians of the glaze. Welcome back to the Melky Donut. Now, before I get started, I just want to say that I have a goal of getting to 10,000 subscribers, so if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it if you want to, it would help me out a ton. And also, before we get started, I want to say that yes, this is just a rumor. It's not confirmed by Nintendo. It's all but confirmed in my opinion, but it's still just a rumor. So take everything I'm going to say with a grain of salt. It's not set in stone. It's just very, very likely. So with that being said, let's get into 7 things I want to see in an Ocarina of Time remake for the Nintendo Switch 2. So the first thing that I would want in the potential Ocarina of Time remake is a complete visual overhaul while keeping the feel of the original. And Nate the Hate went and said that he wasn't sure the scope of this remake. He did say that it was more than likely going to be a from the ground up remake, so how much liberty they want to take with changes, we'll see, but I do expect to get a full reimagining of the world of Ocarina of Time. And what I mean when I say a complete visual overhaul while keeping the same feel of the original Ocarina of Time, it's a little tricky because you really can't have both fully. You can't redo the entire look of the game while maintaining the exact feel and aesthetic of the original. And that's okay. As much as I love Ocarina of Time, and I love the look and the aesthetic and the atmosphere of that game, which I do want to keep the atmosphere as closely as possible to the original, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, but this is an opportunity for a whole new... This is huge for classic Zelda, because yes, Breath of the Wild has brought in a ton of new Zelda fans, and Tears of the Kingdom has also brought in a ton of new Zelda fans, but a lot of them have not played the old games, and they just don't look appealing because they're old games, which is fair. But if they completely make a 4K, 60 frame per second, maybe 120 frames per second at 720p, I don't know, that'd be great. I mean, Metroid Prime 4 did it, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but I'd take a 4K 60 all day. It would bring in a ton of new fans, and hopefully revive some life into maybe not having the mainline Zelda games be classic Zeldas, but maybe just get a few more, side projects here and there, which I would absolutely love. So this is huge for me and for Zelda, and I think imagine walking into a Lon Lon Ranch and it's just like fully reimagined and realistic, and I don't necessarily want like a Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom art style. I'd rather have like a Twilight Princess, like a more modernized Twilight Princess aesthetic. I think that would be perfect for an Ocarina of Time remake. I mean, people made Unreal Engine versions of it, and I actually don't like the look of Unreal Engine for a lot of things. But there's a lot of competition out there, and Nintendo knows that, and I think they know what they have to do. And I could go on all day. I mean, just Zora's Domain. I love Zora's Domain in Ocarina of Time. It's like my top 2 favorite places in that entire game. I don't know what, it's like the music and the vibe. It's just somewhere you just want to, it's like cozy, it's a little cave, and it's just peaceful. And if they are able to keep that feeling, but just imagine what the possibilities are. I mean, they're endless. I mean, you could make it so good, and I really just hope that it's as good as I can imagine it to be, which the problem is I'm going to have really high expectations. But at the end of the day, it is Ocarina of Time still, and I don't know how you mess it up unless you like take way too many liberties and they're not the right ones. But as long as you keep the atmosphere and the feel and the heart and soul of that game, I don't really see. And I have nothing wrong with them taking liberty. I want them to take liberties and make additions and improvements on the game, just as long as they're the right ones and they don't completely change the identity of what the game is and why we love that game so much. But I don't think that's really going to happen. I think they understand how important this game is. So I think we'll just get an improved version of what we loved in the first place. Alright, jumping right into my next want here, and that's going to be more and improved boss battles. Now, I'm not expecting them to add a ton more main bosses. I mean, maybe like one or two, but definitely mini bosses. Right now there's 10 in the original. There's 10 main bosses, including Ganondorf's final Ganon form, and then there are also 10 mini bosses, most of which are really good. So I just want more of them and improvements on the ones that we do have. Like I said, there are some really good boss fights in Ocarina of Time. I mean, the final Ganon battle, Phantom Ganon, Volvagia, however you want to say it, Twin Roba, there's just like some good ones, and then there's Morpha, which is frankly booty. And it sucks because the water temple is actually a good temple. And then you get to the end, and it's like, wow, that was a really difficult temple. This is going to be a crazy boss. No, you're basically just fighting a water worm amoeba with a nucleus that you hookshot over and over again to kill. And it's pretty underwhelming, to be honest. So I'm going to talk about mechanics later on in this video coming up shortly. So I want them to add a lot more elements to the fighting and the fights, especially for the bosses, because they're pretty simple for the most part. I mean, like I said, there's some really good ones. Phantom Ganon's phenomenal. I wouldn't even change anything about that. I would just, obviously the graphical aspects of it. But other than that, it's great. And I also wouldn't mind just encountering more overworld enemies. I mean, maybe you just find a cave and there's a mini boss in there. I mean, you could. I go on to this later on, but there's not a lot to do in Hyrule Field, and I really hope that they add maybe some areas and some caves and some extra exploratory areas, to say the least. But it would be so cool to just run into, I don't know, like a random Moldorm or a Goma or a group of Moblins, a Dark Nut. I don't know. There's so many Zelda enemies and mini bosses that you could choose from, and it would just be cool to explore and have some dropped around here and there on the map to give you a nice little surprise. And that leads me nicely into my next one, which is more enemies. Now, there's actually a pretty good amount of enemies in Ocarina of Time already, especially for the age of the game, but I feel like if you have the opportunity, why not throw a couple extra enemies in there? Even if it's just, putting some of the enemies that are already in the game in other spots just to fill up some area. But if you're gonna do that, you might as well just throw in some enemies from some other games, because I just feel like that's like a no-brainer. I mean, why not throw in a Wizrobe or something, just, and like I said, you can even reuse stuff. I mean, Floor Masters and Wall Masters, honestly, probably the scariest enemy in the entire Zelda franchise for me, personally. I get it. Redeads and Gibdos are creepy, and, but at least you can, like, keep your distance, and if you get too close to them, then, yeah, they do that scary scream and all that. But, like, when you see a Floor Master shadow or Wall Master shadow come on you, and that like windy sound comes, dude, I used to get so unbelievably stressed. And you could just throw a couple of those in a random spot, and immediately my heart rate will spike. I mean, those like Guardian level anxiety for me. I don't know what they were phenomenal. So you could throw a couple of those in some random areas for a nice little surprise. And like I said, I don't fully expect them to add a ton of new enemies. I mean, we have to be kind of realistic here, but at the same time, I mean, if they're going to expand the game size-wise, which I would imagine they would, I mean, you could expand the overworld 2 to 3 times, and I mean, you got to put something there. So why not throw some extra enemies in there and some bosses? Moving on to the next thing on my list. Yeah, this is way more than 7. I had originally written down 7 things that I wanted, and then as I started doing my voiceover, I just kept thinking of things to talk about. So yeah, you're just gonna have to deal with it. I don't know what to tell you, but this one's kind of quick, and I go more into the combat later. But horseback combat is something I would love to see in an Ocarina of Time remake. I mean, why not? I think it would add a huge new element to not only the combat, but the exploration and the just the excitement of fighting. The only issue is there's nothing to fight really in Hyrule Field, so please, like I said, just throw some enemies around the overworld, and that would solve the whole issue. And it doesn't even have to be super in-depth combat. As long as I can swing my sword and shoot my bow and use whatever other weapon you want to give me, I'd be happy with it, as long as it was streamlined and worked well. That's really all I ask. Horseback combat, would love to see it. I think it was supposed to be in the original, but they cut it out. So I'd love to see it return, and I think it would be a great addition. So for this next one, I actually have to give a shout out to a Reddit user that goes by the name of Fuzzy Paws, because I had this idea, and then I really couldn't think of how I wanted to say it. So I'm actually just gonna read you their post on this. So basically, it has to do with the timeline and alternate endings. So basically, they just say if they want to stay with a three-way timeline, this is pretty much their opportunity to at least retcon the published what if basis of the downfall timeline. And they go on to say that the abandoned first adult timeline that you leave forever to go back in time and get the lens of truth in the silver gauntlets is basically already a logical source of an unopposed canon. So it's just a nice way to clean up the timeline problems, which I really don't think that they're going to mess with, because it's already, Nintendo really doesn't care about the timeline. It's as much as I wish and want them and want to believe that they do, because I've lied to myself for years. And I think they did originally. I think they started it out with more of an idea of what they wanted to do with the timeline, and then things got out of hand, and then they kind of just had to flub stuff. So if they wanted to mess with the timeline a little bit to make it a little bit more coherent, an alternate ending would be cool. You could have the original as well as an alternate ending. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it'd be cool to see them legitimize the idea of the downfall timeline. Basically, all they need to do is to do something that would put a little bit of emphasis on the downfall timeline and how the split happened, because it is a huge part of the Zelda timeline, but it's not really, it's kind of just glazed over. As much as I love glaze, that's not really one of the times I want it. And it would help even tie in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and the Wild Era and Majora's Mask. It would be cool. I ain't gonna lie, it'd be pretty cool, but I'm skeptical. Next up on my super unorganized bullet point list of things I want, I apologize for, I'm just excited, okay? I'm sorry, I get a little baffled when I get excited. But it might be a little controversial, which I don't see this as a bad thing at all. I see it as a very good thing and exciting, but that would be content added to the dungeons and the overworld. And when I say content, I mean areas, items, new shops, new armor sets with abilities, unused content from the original, such as the Light Temple or the Master Sword Beam attack they were going to put in the game. There's so many things you could add to the remake to just expand on the gameplay of Ocarina of Time. And the only reason I say that this could be somewhat controversial for fans of this game is because people are so attached to the dungeons and the temples and the areas in this game and just the entire game itself. I feel like some people might not want it to change at all. And believe me, I love this game just as much as anybody else. I love the dungeons and temples. They're some of the best in the entire franchise. With that being said, I've also played through this game so many times, and I can get through all the dungeons with no problem, and I know all the nook and crannies, and this is probably going to be the only chance we ever get to add stuff to potentially the best game ever made, or at least one of the best games ever made. In my opinion, it is the best game ever made, but this is the only chance we're going to have for the foreseeable forever to add things to make this game even better and more expansive and more deep, and add to the lore and add to just the exploration of Ocarina of Time. Because Ocarina of Time, and I know I talk a lot of crap about open world, I do not hate open world games. I actually really, really love them. Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time. I just have this whole other thing. I'm actually making a hype video about Breath of the Wild, or I literally after I record this one. So I don't hate open world. And I honestly think that Ocarina of Time was kind of their first experiment with an open world-ish game. Which leads me right into my next want, which is like I said, expansion on the areas and the overworld. Now yes, I do want to keep the original map of Ocarina of Time for the most part. And I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how many liberties they're going to take or how big the scope of this remake would be. And I wouldn't want them to fully go open world with the overworld, but I would want them to almost get close. Keep the linear story, and even the original Ocarina of Time is not completely linear. I mean, you can go out to the overworld, and there is like a specific track you're supposed to follow, and you kind of have to do things in certain orders. But you can, like, you go out to Hyrule Field, and you can go to Lake Hylia, or you can go to Kakariko Village, or Lon Lon Ranch, or whatever you want to do. So I think they should really expand on, especially Hyrule Field and the overworld, because as much as I love this game, if you let a modern gamer that's never played a Zelda game or never played Ocarina of Time, I think they would really like it. I think they would still think it's a really, really good game. But you have to be honest, that some of the areas are empty, and, you know, Hyrule Field, there's not a whole lot going on. There's a couple holes and a couple enemies you have to fight, and then a day and night cycle, so when it turns night you get some extra enemy variation. But there's not a whole ton to do. So I think if you just, doubled or tripled the size of Hyrule Field, or even added some new areas. I mean, you could add new little areas that you could go to besides the main villages and areas you can go to. I think it would add a huge feeling of exploration that would be so good to have in between your linear story beats and your dungeons and temples. And like I said, you can still keep the linear story. You know, you have to have this item to get into this temple, or you have to be a child or an adult, or, you know, whatever you gotta do, which is fine, that's good, that's what makes Ocarina of Time, that's one of its best attributes. But then in between that, you have like this open kind of area where you can just explore and have a ton of side quests, which is actually my next want, and that is more side quests. And when I say more side quests, I mean like a lot more side quests. I want NPCs around Hyrule Castle Town, Hyrule Field, Lake Hylia, like especially Hyrule Castle Town, because that place is already popping. And I always loved that area because I thought it was cool that you could walk in the back alley and talk to that soldier, which, by the way, you could add so much lore to this area, because that soldier alone talks about how he was trying to stop Ganondorf and his army from kidnapping Zelda and the attack on Impa and all them. Like, there's just so much lore you can add to that, and I thought it was cool that you could walk up the stairs and walk around along that long balcony. It just felt expansive at the time. You know, it's not quite the same now. There's so many opportunities you could do. You could add shops and mini games, a plethora of side quests, and just a more expansive area. Just make it bigger that you can walk around. It's all, you know, make it, there's no loading screens in between walking from the actual center of Hyrule Castle Town to the Temple of Time, or into the Hyrule Castle Garden, or whatever. You know, you can make it so much bigger, and that's just something I really, really want. You know, more side quests, more things to do. And not to mention, one of my biggest side quest wants is fishing. I know you can fish in the original, and it's fun, it's good, but I want a dedicated, like, good, expansive fishing game. And you could even tie that into side quests. Maybe somebody needs you to go catch them a fish for a certain recipe, and you're gonna get a prize for it. I don't know. Add different species and records to break like you do in the original. There's nothing really you can't expand on it too much, but I would like a nice, streamlined, good fishing game. And that's all I'll say on that. Now, for my next want, and I know this is a long video and I'm talking a lot, and if you're still here, you're a real one, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. But that's going to be a pretty obvious one, I would think. Like, it's something I think they would have to do, I would hope. And that's improvements and additions to the combat system. Now, the combat and the fighting mechanics in the original Ocarina of Time are pretty outdated, I would say. Basically, you have one main attack, which is your overhand slash. And then you can press down and hold for a spinning attack that uses magic, and then obviously you have your bow and your hook shot if you want to use that as a weapon, or your slingshot. Now, there's really not that much you can do as far as fighting, so I think the combat mechanics need to be completely overhauled and redone. And that brings me to, like, you know, adding new weapons. Maybe you find something in a random dungeon and you can keep the weapon as something new, or maybe you have special abilities from the medallions, you know, the goddess medallions, which I believe was going to be used in the original, but it got scrapped. But I think that could also add a ton of enjoyability to the way you fight enemies in this game. Maybe you have armor sets that give you different abilities, or add to your health, or something like that. You know, just little things that can make the fighting more fun, and just a fresh take on the fighting mechanics, because like I said, the mechanics in the old game are pretty outdated, and I feel like they would get boring kind of quick nowadays if you try to get a new audience in on it. But yeah, so on to my neck, and we're almost done. I only have a couple left, so don't worry. This is kind of a quick one. I want quality of life improvements. Just, you know, camera angles, the controls, the item UI, you know, of course, Ocarina of Time being an older game, it had an animation that it played through when every time you hit the pause button, which I actually like. I do like, which I don't want to get rid of. I like that, the little animation, and it's cool. It's Ocarina of Time, okay? That being said, I don't want to have to open it every time I have to switch on boots, or change my tunic, or change my weapon, or whatever, you know. Maybe they can just figure out a more streamlined way to do that. Now, in the Ocarina of Time remaster for the 3DS, they did fix like the Iron Boots issue, which was a really good change, because it was such a pain to have to open the water temple was already frustrating, and then you had to open up your menu every time you wanted to switch on or off your Iron Boots, which was 3,000 times, and it just was not it. So if they could just, you know, make a better way to switch throughout your items and gear, and better camera angles, that's, you know, it's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. So I'll kind of leave that at that, and I'll move on to my last couple here. So my last two wants are arguably two of the most important wants. I saved them for the end so nobody will see them because nobody's gonna stick around this long, but I don't care. I'm just doing this for the fun of the love of the game, all right? But I want the music to stay as atmospheric as it is in the original. Now, I would like to have a fully orchestrated soundtrack, but I would want it to be faithful to the original tone and atmosphere, like I said. Now, it's a little difficult to do because like the original has a lot of synth and a lot of 8-bit, you know, kind of aspects to it. But I feel like you can do a fully orchestrated version of the soundtrack while keeping the vibe of the game the same, as long as you know when and when not to use like overly orchestrated or modernized sounds or music. Like I saw another YouTuber, he said if you walk in the Temple of Time and you hear like drums or an instrument that you know isn't supposed to be there because you know the Temple of Time vibe and the song and the theme, it's just not going to feel right. And one of my favorite music soundtracks games of all time is the Forest Temple music. It's so it's like so atmospheric. It's so good, and it's hard to imagine that being orchestrated and giving off the same like eerie vibe. But I think it's possible because I went on YouTube and listened to like a orchestrated version, and it you can get it pretty atmospheric. So I do want a soundtrack that matches, you know, the full. It would be kind of weird to have a fully redone game and have the exact original soundtrack, but that being said, the original soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks in any game or movie or piece of media ever. So I would like it to be redone to match the remake nature, but I want it to not take too many liberties. Like I want it to just be the music from Ocarina of Time, maybe just modernized and orchestrated. But it's a slippery slope, so just be careful, Nintendo. That's all I'm asking. Now, my final want at the exact moment I'm making this video, because I'm sure I'll think of way more. But I mentioned how atmosphere in this game is so important, and the atmosphere of Ocarina of Time is a huge reason of why it's so memorable and so immersive, and so good. And that's something that I would really be sad if it got lost in a remake. And it's kind of hard because it's hard to, like I said earlier, it's hard to keep the same exact atmosphere and feel while completely overhauling everything else. I do think it can be done. I think it might be a tricky feat to pull off, but I'm not a game designer, and that's what I have to put my faith in the Zelda team to be able to stay faithful enough to the heart and soul of the original Ocarina of Time to maintain that atmosphere. And I actually think the Ocarina of Time HD remake on the 3DS kind of didn't get the vibe completely right. I saw somebody else talking about the same thing, and I thought I was crazy, but it is. I think it's because the game is lighter, and they kind of did the textures in a more almost cartoony way. I'll try to put some images up just to give you an example. I just know the original is a lot darker and a lot more gritty, and I just think that's the vibe. You know, I just like that. I like that with that vibe. Just keep the atmosphere as closely the same as possible. I know it's not possible to keep it exactly the same, but I think it is possible to keep it close. So yeah, that's my long list of wants. I hope this happens. I really do. This is a really long video, and I apologize, but I'm a huge Zelda fan, and a even huger Ocarina of Time fan. So yeah, if you like this video, subscribe to become a guardian of the glaze. I'm gonna make a video about Breath of the Wild that should be coming out in the next couple days. So yeah, it was good talking to you guys, and Thanks for listening to me yap about something that might not even happen, but, you know, it's okay. But I'll see you next time on the Milky Donut.